observations of Suleiman and Ottoman society were recorded by de Busbecq, a Flemish nobleman who spent most of his life in the service of the Habsburg dynasty, in particular Ferdinand I, who was the Archduke of Austria. And this is what he said in his Turkish letters. First impressions. On our arrival, we were taken to call on Ahmed Pasha, the chief wazir, and the other pashas, for the Sultan himself was not then in the town, and commenced our negotiations with them, touching the business entrusted to us by King Ferdinand. The pashas told us that the whole matter depended on the Sultan's pleasure. On his arrival, we were admitted to an audience, but the manner and spirit in which he listened to our address, our arguments, and our message was by no means favourable. On entering, we were separately conducted into the royal presence by the chamberlains, who grasped our arms. After having gone through a pretence of kissing Suleiman's hand, we were conducted backwards to the wall opposite his seat, care being taken that we should never turn our backs on him. The Sultan then listened to what I had to say, but the language I used was not at all to his taste. For the demands of His Majesty breathed a spirit of independence and dignity, which was by no means acceptable to one who deemed that his wish was law. And so he made no answer beyond saying in an impatient way, "Gazelle, gazelle, well, well." After this, we were dismissed to our quarters. The Sultan's hall was crowded with people, among whom were several officers of high rank. Besides these, there were all the troopers of the Imperial Guard and a large force of janissaries. But there was not, in all that great assembly, a single man who owed his position to anything save his valour and his merit. No distinction is attached to birth among the Turks. The respect to be paid to a man is measured by the position he holds in the public service. There is no fighting for precedence. A man's place is marked out by the duties he discharges. It is by merit that men rise in the service, a system which ensures that posts should only be assigned to the competent. Those who receive the highest offices from the Sultan are for the most part the sons of shepherds or herdsmen, and so far from being ashamed of their parentage, they actually glory in it and consider it a matter of boasting that they owe nothing to the accident of birth, for they do not believe that high qualities are either natural or hereditary, nor do they think that they can be handed down from father to son, but that they are partly the gift of God and partly the result of good training, great industry, and unwearied zeal. Among the Turks, therefore, honours, high positions, and judgeships are the rewards of great ability and good service. And then he said on the Ottoman military strength, "Against us stands Suleiman, that foe whom his own and his ancestors' exploits have made so terrible. He tramples the soil of Hungary with 200,000 horses. He is at the very gates of Austria, threatens the rest of Germany, and brings in his train all the nations that extend from our borders to those of Persia. The army he leads is equipped with the wealth of many kingdoms. Of the 3 regions into which the world is divided, there is not one that does not contribute its share towards our destruction. The Turkish monarch, going to war, takes with him over 40,000 camels, and nearly as many baggage mules, of which a great part, when he is invading Persia, are loaded with rice and other kinds of grain. These mules and camels also serve to carry tents and armour, and likewise tools and munitions for the campaign. The territories which bear the name of Persia are less fertile than our country, and even such crops as they bear are laid waste by the inhabitants in time of invasion, in hopes of starving out the enemy, so that it is very dangerous for an army to invade Persia if it is not furnished with abundant supplies. After dinner, I practiced the Turkish bow, in the use of which weapon people here are marvelously expert. From the 8th or even the 7th year of their age, they begin to shoot at a mark and practice archery 10 or 12 years. This constant exercise strengthens the muscles of their arms and gives them such skill that they can hit the smallest marks with their arrows. So sure is their aim that in battle they can hit a man in the eye or in any other exposed part they choose. No nation in the world has shown greater readiness than the Turks to avail themselves of the useful invention of foreigners, as is proved by their employment of cannons and mortars and many other things invented by Christians. The Turks are much afraid of carbines and pistols, such as are used on horseback. The same, I hear, is the case with the Persians, on which account someone advised Rustam, when he was setting out with the Sultan on a campaign against them, to raise from his household servants a troop of 200 horsemen and arm them with firearms, as they would cause much alarm in the ranks of the enemy. Rustam, in accordance with this advice, raised a troop of dragoons, furnished them with firearms, and had them drilled. But they had not completed half the journey when their guns began to get out of order. Every day some essential part of their weapons was lost or broken, and it was not often that armourers could be found capable of repairing them. So a large part of the firearms having been rendered unserviceable, the men took a dislike to the weapon, and this prejudice was increased by the dirt which its use entailed. The Turks being a very cleanly people, for the dragoons had their hands and clothes begrimed with gunpowder, and moreover presented such a sorry appearance with their ugly boxes and pouches hanging about them, that their comrades laughed at them and called them apothecaries. So they gathered around Rustam, and showing him their broken and useless firearms, asked what advantage he hoped to gain from them when they met the enemy, and demanded that he should relieve them of them and give them their old arms again. Rustam, after considering their request carefully, thought there was no reason for refusing to comply with it, and so they got permission to resume their bows and arrows.